Hey everyone, Ben here. Welcome to today's episode. We're diving into the fascinating world of robotics with Martin Wanitschke from Wandelbots. Imagine a world where anyone can program industrial robots. No technical background needed. That's Wandelbots' mission, to democratize robotics. From the game-changing TracePen to the upcoming Wandelbots Nova, Martin shares how they are transforming automation with innovative programming, AI-enhanced interfaces, and new business models. If you're interested in how robotics is moving closer to everyday users and redefining company cultures along the way, you won't want to miss this conversation. Let's jump right in.
Nova's here changing the scene. Tune in, feel the tech machine. Stellar work where futures meet. Wandelbots brings that Nova beat. Nova, breaking through. Robots for me, robots for you. On the beat, automation's here. Tune in and feel it, the future's clear.
Hey Martin, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Benjamin. Pleasure to be
Thank
here.
Again, to be here again.
It's been a
Um,
while since we last
yeah.
spoke in the podcast, and this time a bit with different roles.
Yeah, definitely. Last time I don't know if people know this, but we both hosted a small tech news podcast where we made fun about what's up in the business and tech world. I think we did like 12 or 13 episodes.
Oh, I don't even remember. It felt more, but maybe it only felt more.
So, and that's the reason why the podcast was abandoned and there are no more episodes anyways. So if you're down for the news of the past 2 years,
But this might take a
go
while.
check it out. Wow. So, we have this habit on the show that whenever there is a guest here, he or she will introduce himself or herself first to the audience. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and we dive into the Vandalbots topic later.
What an exotic habit. But of course, I'm here. Hi, I'm Martin. Today speaking for Wandelbots and not for our podcast like we did in the past. No, Wandelbots company founded in 2018 and I joined it in 2020. I do live in Dresden, which is good because Wandelbots is headquarters also in Dresden, so I can do both, work in a great company and also support my hometown and maybe some surroundings. I've also studied in Dresden, 42 years old, 42 the answer to everything. 2 little kids, 2 daughters, and looking forward to an exciting milestone we are having ahead of us.
Before we go into that issue, what is currently your role at Vandalbots? What are your responsibilities?
My role is chief of staff, and that's maybe something not everybody of your audience is familiar with. Chief of staff is a role that is was mainly introduced in startups, and I'm chief of staff in the CEO team. So currently working very closely with Christian, our CEO, and sometimes he describes me as Martin is solving the day 2 problem. When I have the chance to describe it, I would say I'm the better Christian, but maybe that's a bit too cheeky.
So you're heavily counting on him not checking out the show.
But that's not gonna happen. And I think this is likewise. I hope this is likewise. You have to ask him.
But we're here for the robotics part of it. So what does Vandalbots have been doing for the past years, like before the major changes that you will announce on the 4th?
Well, Wandelbots it was always on the way to democratize robotics, right? So this is why the company was founded by 5 people that were working at the chair of software architecture of the Dresden University. technical university, and that they've met there and have done some scientific research within their PhDs, and got in touch with software for robots. So that's why they initially stumbled upon how robots were programmed back in the days. And I don't know how many interactions you've had with robots before. I know it's been a couple, at least in theory, but when you haven't had anything to do with robots, you might think that this is the forefront of technology. Whenever, if you give a pen and a piece of paper to a kid and you tell him just draw something about the future, will mainly be space shuttles or robots, very likely. This is true for the hardware part of it. It's totally not true for the software part of robotics. So robots nowadays are still programmed like 30 years ago. There has been a robot OEM that had an innovation project in 2018. That was when the software part of this OEM was lifted to the programming language BASIC. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, because you're a bit younger than I am. I've learned BASIC in school.
We needed to learn BASIC as well, and also at university, because I have an
At
engineering degree.
university?
I also,
Okay.
yeah, I needed to. I was forced. I
Okay.
learned it against my will. I learned assembler,
And
which is pain.
I'm pretty sure that nobody at the university nowadays would learn anything about BASIC. So it's been abandoned from research and also from education. But what I'm heading to is it's still programmed like 30 years ago. The user interface to program a robot is a so-called teach pendant, which is very often a monochronous display. Maybe the even worse part of it is that every robot OEM has its proprietary programming language. So if you are able to program a Fanuc robot, you are not necessarily able to also program a Yaskawa robot, for example. And that's what they stumbled upon when our founders were working at the university. They said, okay, this should change, right? Because there's so many manual processes in the world, so many economic challenges that can be overcome by automation, but not if it's still a niche market and only accessible to a few people that are able to interact with robots. And then
I had the chance to program a robot myself when I was at university, and it was a milling robot. It was super old, and we had this dark green display where we needed to type in the CNC coordinates where it should move. And there was no changing in the tools that the robot is using. So it was just one tool attached to the robot, and you would put in the coordinates, you would put in the speed as the fourth coordinate, and then it took forever. And once you did a mistake, you have to do it all over again. It was horrible. But that was like 20 years ago. It felt 20 years ago. It's like
then at
15.
least you know what I'm talking about. And the bad,
But is it still like that?
Exactly. The bad news is it's still like that. Okay, some things have changed, and I mean there has been innovation in the hardware part of it. Like back in the days when you were programming a robot, it would very likely would have been an industrial robot, because those collaborative robots, also called cobots, they haven't existed back then.
Yeah.
Because they've come into the market like maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago maybe, and they can be easily trained. I wouldn't call it programmed, because you can hand guide them, right? So you point the robot arm to a certain point, and then you press a button, and then the robot knows where to start at least. But those cobots, there are many use cases in the world out there for cobots to be used. But for real industrial and heavy, especially heavy lifting, industrial robots would be necessary. And the majority of them is still programmed the way that you've just described. And to get back to the founding story of Wandelbots, they have then taken part in an innovation competition. where they were controlling a robot with variables. So they've put sensors into a jacket, and then they were kind of dancing in front of a robot, or you could have danced in front of a robot and the robot would have moved simultaneously. And with that, they won a booth at Hannover Fair in 2017. And this exhibition there was so stunning, even Angela Merkel, some of the audience might remember her. She visited them at the booth, and the story goes, on their way back in the train from the trade fair, they had a bunch of business cards and said, well, obviously there's demand for something like it. Let's found a company. And that's why Vandalbots was founded. And we've gone a long way, but I'm pretty sure we will cover some of the history within the next minutes.
Yeah, definitely. So what Wandelbots did was, if I understood you correctly, you had this pen, you called it a TracePen, right? Where you
Exactly.
would point and mark the coordinates in space where the rover should move. But then what happened then?
Then what happened? Yes, well, I would even go one step back in the past, because the TracePen wasn't the first interaction device. Like I said, the first thing was jacket, right? And that was before I was at Wandelbots, so I can only tell what I've been told. So getting a jacket into an industry, or variables, any kind of variables, right, into an industry that is used to program a monochronous displays with a proprietary software language, there were funny questions like, can I wash it? Do you have it in different sizes? Do you have it in different colors? And that was always something nobody really
Is
cared
there a
about.
Gucci version of it?
I don't know if that was a question. Even if it was, it would show that there was demand for things that a bunch of software engineers has not really thought about, right? So that's where I'm heading to. And then also making a robot move simultaneously doesn't really serve. So that's my opinion, right? So that's not a thing that I've heard, but from my observation from the past or from the history of Vandalbots, making a robot move simultaneously by just moving yourself with a variable, wearing a variable, doesn't really serve automotive need when they are welding like car bodies, for example, right? So the next interaction device or input device, that's what we called it, was a TracePen, right? So that was kind of a pen that everybody, of course, everybody who has ever had a pen in his hand, and maybe that's a majority of the people, could draw a path around the workpiece. So you could draw that path directly onto the workpiece in a virtual space. Not usually, you didn't really paint a line, but you have moved the pen like a pen. And we had tracking cubes that were translating the move of the TracePen into a robot path. And the user interface that users had was an iPad. And on the iPad, you could then see the path. You could see the workpiece that was drawn around, and then you could even correct it and adapt it to, like in curves, you could adapt velocity, adapt speed, and then press play, and the robot was doing exactly what it was told to do.
Basically, you could program it by giving it the movement through
Exactly.
that pen, and that would translate into code, and that would be fed into the robot.
Exactly.
The robot, he or she, would understand that.
Yes, that was the plan. Exactly.
But as I've heard, your plans have changed.
And
what was wrong with it? Like, before we go into what is going to be the future of Wandelbots, maybe what was the cause for you to think into a different direction with the product and the service?
okay. I would be brave enough to say actually nothing was wrong with it. So we had quite a bunch of customers that were happy users of it, but devil's in the detail, right? So, and for example, if you look into welding as a process, as such, it has so many different parameters, so many things you need to take care of. So even there are so many kinds of welding, right? So that even couldn't even name them in English, but I know for example, there's arc welding and there's MIG
there's TIG welding,
yeah,
aluminum
exactly.
welding, underwater welding.
Okay, maybe underwater welding is something really, really niche, but yes,
But
true.
that would be something that I would pay a robot to do. Because everybody hates doing that, I guess.
And
getting into a suit, diving underwater, and working on an oil rig.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too comfortable. Customers that we've worked with, they said, cool, nice, we might be able to use it if. And then there was always a list of special wishes, of special requirements from customers for them to be able to really use it in their daily business, right? And in Germany would say we were kind of trapped in the feature trap, so in a feature falle. I don't know if this is an English saying as well.
It is. There is Minister Perry who wrote a book exactly about it. So feature trap is a pretty good.
And we tried to fulfill all those wishes, of course, because we were really believing in making people able to let manual work be done by robots. And if there's someone who's welding nowadays manually, he would be the best person to teach a robot how to do it by just using, instead of his manual welding torch, just using the TracePen. If you've welded like for 30 years, you would exactly know how quickly you go around corners, how quickly you would move from one point to the next, and all that process knowledge is in the head of those guys, right? But still fulfilling their special wishes to also cover the things that are in their heads, but not in the product yet, made us run into that feature trap. So we could have built a great SME for like providing special machinery for welders, for example.
But that would be like an organization where you have a platform team, you would have different projects, and you would customize the features specifically for your clients.
Exactly. And then of course also support them, right? So they support specific features for specific clients. This would be a company, and I'm pretty sure it would be a very healthy company and also a great company, but that was not why Wandelbots was founded. From the beginning, it was founded to democratize robotics. That's also how they got me actually initially. When I first talked to Christian and I met him first in November 2019, this vision made me start with Wandelbots, right? To really start something great that has the potential to change the world from my hometown. So and by the way, the people that I met initially were also great people that I would have liked to work with back then. So we did change. I'm always hesitating with that Wandelbots did pivot, because it wasn't really a pivot like you would really change your product offering, because as you said earlier, the movement of the TracePen was translated by a software into a robot path, right? The core of the product wasn't the TracePen. If you compare it, and it's a nice analogy that I'm very frequently using, if you compare our product to operating system that is running on the laptop, for example, let's compare it to Windows, right? Then the software is the operating system, and TracePen was the mouse. So that was the interaction device for anybody to be able to interact with the laptop. And the TracePen was the input device for anybody to interact with the robot. But the core, the essence of the product was the software, because the software translated it into the respective programming language of the robot that was meant to then do the robot movement and the path. So I'm always, whenever I'm asked, I'm telling people we did focus. So we did focus on the software, and that's also the DNA of the company. Like I said earlier, the founders, they were PhDs at the chair of software architecture of the university in Dresden. So we did focus on software only and we started that in May 2023. We said we get rid of all the hardware pieces because it's just also it wasn't part of our DNA.
Something again changed. So we're recording this on the 25th, and on the 4th, you're going to announce something big, as I've heard.
Yeah.
And we're going to publish the episode later. So when you listening to this, you can also look it up on the internet and maybe see a stream. I don't know. We're going to see. Can you tell us a little bit about what is going to change for Wandelbots?
Maybe not too much for Wandelbots, to be honest, but for the world. And it might sound arrogant.
Super humble.
Yeah,
super humble.
Because for Wandelbots, I mean, what we have been working on the operating system for robots for now almost 1.5 years, right? And we are going to unveil it. Yes, you're right. We're going to unveil it to the world. Or let's face it, at least to the automation world in the beginning on the 4th of November. So, and we call the product Wandelbots Nova. And Nova is the first hardware-agnostic operating system for robots. So it's the pure software. It's an operating system that is able to run on any device, that is able to just show a user interface. So if you have a device that has a browser, then you will be able to use Wandelbots Nova. And the whole automation lifecycle, from planning over building apps on top of it to operate your robot, can be covered by Wandelbots Nova. And I'm more than happy to get into details.
Is that something that I could understand, like the robot operating system, like ROS or ROS Industrial?
Interesting question. No, you can't. Other than the appropriation or the name ROS would suggest, ROS is not really an operating system, because what it lacks is a user interface. And again, coming back to the analogy of Windows, what Microsoft did back then, before Windows was invented, and I don't know if you remember, but I still do, I'm that old, Windows 3.1, before then, when you turned on a personal computer, you didn't really have more than a black screen and a white cursor on it. And unless you were able to give specific codes, right, or commands and type them in, basically a computer was useless for you. And then Windows,
so you needed like super special knowledge to even do something with it, right?
Exactly. And then when Windows was invented, you had a graphical user interface, and that's what ROS is lacking. So, and still, I mean, you might have worked with techies before, right? And I'm a super fan of Mac OS, for example. But I do know people that are using a Mac, and whenever they interact with it, they open the terminal and they type in their commands because they're just used to it. And that's totally fine. Absolutely okay. The thing that has changed is that a computer is not only a machine those kind of people can work with, right? And ROS addresses exactly those people. So if you know commands that you have to type in ROS, or with software programming language that is even a bit old, to be honest, then ROS is the perfect way to go. It always has some barriers when it comes to real industrial use. One of it is latency. Latency is that's what we are hearing is very frequently a barrier for using ROS in industrial environment. But giving it to my kids, for example, and telling them make the robot move, they wouldn't be able to do that with ROS.
So how would you say is Nova democratizing robotics? Is it still, because I imagine that someone would still need to approach the screen or the terminal and type something in there to make the robot move.
Have you used a smartphone recently? So then you might have an idea what Nova will look like. There is no terminal. Yes, there is a terminal, but you're not forced to use it.
How do I get my coordinates and the movements onto the robot if I don't have a pen anymore and if I'm not typing in the coordinates and speed and stuff like that?
You're asking, where does the robot path come from, right? And that's the nice thing. There are tons of ways to get to a robot path. One of it is programming, obviously. And let's focus on that maybe first. The good thing is you can still program it, right? You can type in coordinates, but you do that with one software language, and that is Python based, and we call it Wandelbots. So everybody who would be able to program in Python or maybe Java, because it's pretty close, would be able to program Wandelbots. It will be enhanced by AI tools, or it is enhanced by AI tools. So AI would help you writing commands or code lines to program your robot. That is one thing, right? Second is we did come up with a solution for camera-based, so visual-based programming, where you put your workpiece onto like a table or whatever, and the robot has a camera mounted on top of it, or it's a 3D camera, obviously. Camera is taking a picture of the workpiece, and there will be an automatic path generation for that workpiece. So there doesn't even need to be any line of code, or you don't need to draw around the workpiece, but the camera is taking the picture. And then you have your interaction device, which is can be a touch screen, or if it's not a touch screen, if it's a laptop, then you have those arrow keys, and you can correct the path like you would correct your PowerPoint, for example.
That sounds super interesting. That almost reminds me of the, I don't know if you have heard that I think it was at Klarna, where they fed a video from an employee working with Salesforce. And he was clicking through Salesforce, doing his job, and they created tons and tons of video material to it, fed that into an AI and said, hey, AI, write me a program that is doing the same stuff that Salesforce is doing.
Okay,
And
no, I haven't heard that, but
just
that
upon
sounds
that
interesting.
video, that is super interesting. And then remind me of that, because you said you could, like, with a 3D camera, you could capture the video of the thing that you're working on and create the path from there.
It's not even a video; it's only a picture, or maybe a couple of pictures. If it's a huge workpiece, for example, then you would take pictures from different angles, and then there's an overlay of those 3 pictures to generate a 3D model of it. And then the path will be just generated automatically, if how I call it.
So I don't know if you have tuned into a couple of the episodes that I'm pushing out here, but it's always about transformation and how companies pivot and change the way they're working, but also what they're working on. So I'm super curious here, introducing those changes and introducing that slight shift. We may not call it a pivot, that slight shift. What has changed for the people working at Vandalbots? So you already got rid of a hardware attachment onto your service, and now you fully move into that open operating system. How do you restructure your company with those changes in mind? How does that work?
Can I pause that question for a moment? Because I would love to get back to, I love talking about the product. I'm sorry, but you've invited me, and you should have known, because we have now only focused, when we were describing the product, we have only focused on how to program the robot, right? So this is basically the operate part of it. How will Nova support you operating your robot? As I said earlier, there's much more to it. Usually we start with 10, So how is an automation cell being planned? And nowadays it's difficult. Let's phrase it that way. And we have come up with the solution by integrating NVIDIA Omniverse. I don't know if you've heard of it.
That is like the metaverse for factory planners.
Exactly, right? You might have heard of NVIDIA, but I wasn't aware if you've heard of Omniverse. So where you can basically completely simulate your automation cell before you have to purchase any piece of hardware, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can protect your investments because there were many planners, or there are planners nowadays, and there is software for planning. Please don't get me wrong. And also this software is here to stay, right? So we are in addition to it, and this planning is the simulation of planning is so real because of the capabilities of Omniverse, which NVIDIA has learned in their experience over decades of gaming. You compare a picture of the reality with a picture of those simulated robot cells, you would hardly see differences. So, and the good thing is, once it's simulated and you know, okay, that's how I have to build it physically later, then you build it, and then you can easily transfer the path or the robot program that you've created in your virtual world onto the physical twin. That's the simulation part. Then we said there's the operation part, and there's operation part, and there's a build part to it as well. The real leverage would kick in. Today we are talking about maybe 27 million software developers in the world, right? So and they are all busy changing the world, and they came up with solutions that have disrupted so many industries. And we won't go into any details, but I don't know when you've been using a CD last time you were listening to music, or when you have used, don't even know the English word for it. Is it Atlas? A map? Really a physical map? Don't know when you have used that last time when you were trying to get from one location to the next, right? So there's been so many disrupted industries, and they were all disrupted by software. And enabling those 27 million software developers now by having a standard and modern software programming language to have a whole new industry they can play with. You can easily now build an app for a robot. And it might not be as easy as building like a calculator app for your iPhone, because you would need the device to try if it works, unless you do it in a digital twin, obviously. Having a whole new playing field will unlock so much creativity of 27 million software developers and more to come, obviously, that will now be able to build those specific use cases and fulfill those specific requirements that we were kind of trapped in when we were on the market with the TracePen, right? So if a company has a specific need for a specific feature or use case they would love to have in their automation cell, then they would just need to hire a software developer, unless they even, of course, the majority of it, of the companies, they are already employing software developers. So any software developer in the world would be able to add features or to adjust.
So that would be uploaded into a library so everyone can use it, or what is the second line of thought behind it?
That is the second line of thought. It's not there yet, but there will be something like an app store concept.
Oh,
one day.
I could create an app. No,
yes.
I don't, because I'm a very bad programmer. But someone could create an app.
We have the AI
that is useful to them, and then I'm ChatGPT coding.
Yes,
and put it on the App Store or the Vandal Store or whatever you call it. I would be able to sell it to business clients that want to improve their software.
Exactly, and that's what I meant, where the whole leverage will come from, for both features and also obviously commercialization. There's not only a new playing field for for software developers, but it's also a completely new industry where they can commercialize their knowledge in building software. And as so many processes nowadays, especially in the SMB market, are done manually due to the high operational cost of robots, there's really a lot of work that can be done, and a new playing field and commercialization channel that many developers will be using, right?
So could I program a robot from home? Would I be able to program a robot, like, let's say I would work for Volkswagen and they would need an adjustment on a robot cell on their shop floor, and I'm a developer sitting in my home office. Would I be able to program the robot from here safely without hurting anyone?
Of course, we don't touch the safety of the robot, right? So once, especially with cobots, once a cobot hits a surface or like an arm with a certain pressure, then it will just turn into safety off, right? And with industrial robots, there are fences around it, or laser fences, or physical fences. So we don't touch the safety. As long as the robot is connected to any kind of internet device, right? And it might be an edge cloud as well. Yes, you are. And this is something what also the robot OEMs that we are collaborating with are really cherishing, is if they have to update their software today, they literally send out a guy or a lady by car with an USB stick, and he or she plugs the USB stick into the robot and is updating the software. And this is something that doesn't need to happen in the future.
So do you think we will see some service provider popping up? They have like 20, 30 developers, and they would get a contract with anyone who's producing stuff and having industrial robots, and they would like serve them. So they would just call them up and say, hey, I need to fix this. Hey, I need to add that feature. And that agency would then jump in. Is that a business model that we could see?
Maybe. We are actually not focusing too much on new business models that may arise through this.
Sure, I'm just curious.
But I mean, in any disrupted industry, a lot of new business models did arise in the past, so it's very likely that we will also see that. But the companies that are currently in that industry already, they are pretty much looking forward to it. So we are working with those so-called system integrators that are not comparable to the system integrators that we know from software development, but they really do the machinery building, right? So they purchase the hardware for a customer, and they automate their manual process. And what they also have to do is they have to support it. And
okay, so they would be able to do it.
exactly. And that's something that we are currently in the closed beta phase, and that's something we are hearing all the day, actually, from exactly those people. It's so great to not have to jump in the car or hop on a plane and come to the customer side only to fix, I don't know, a minor thing, right? So we would be able to serve so many more customers, and the books are full, right? So they are really looking forward to being able to serve many more customers and fulfill many more automation requirements of also new customers. So getting back to your question, because I promised that I've only parked it or paused it. Of course, if Wandelbots did decide to not follow the hardware approach, it did have influences on the company, and also on the company structure and on the employees. We had a bunch of great people that were working, especially in the hardware section, because you can imagine if the TracePen back then, it contained so many sensors, for example, and you had to translate the interaction in the 3D room into a path that was only able by infrared sensors and receiving sensors in the TracePen. So people that were really deep down into those physics and mechatronics and electronic devices. And when we refocused on the software part, we also had to let them go. And we did that very transparently. And also focusing on the software part even started months before, obviously. So we did interview our customers, asked for their needs. We did a lot of market research with future customers, and we were foreseeing that focusing on hardware is focusing on software is the only way out of the feature trap. So, and the only way how Wandelbots, as the company with the vision and the purpose it was founded, will succeed in the way that we were planning, and also our venture capital investors were foreseeing when they've invested money into Wandelbots.
So it's way scalable because you don't need to scale with people that work on those different projects and customize it to the client needs and all of that.
Also within the fundraising rounds that I was part of, having a scalable software business was always the plan and always the promise, and that's why VCs have invested, and strong VCs. You could easily actually say the TracePen was a bit in the way of the real kicker and the trajectory taking off. So we first of all, of course, we introduced the plan to the board of investors, and they have bought into it. So they said, okay, sounds pretty feasible, and the majority of the software components that you will need to succeed is already there, so focus on it. But also you have to reduce costs in order to increase runway, obviously, because we a little bit, we got back to start, at least from a commercial perspective, right? So we all knew it would now take longer to really have a commercial trajectory that is promising enough for investors and also for ourselves, of course. So what we did is we talked to the people that were working in very hardware focused and told them what we were planning to do, and then had to let them go. But I can tell that was really a shitty time. I can tell I don't want to have that ever again in my life. But looking back now, I would say we did it pretty well, both from a communication perspective and also from a compensation perspective. So we offered them to leave the company with a certain package. We offered them outplacement consulting with companies that we work with. We all used and leverage the network that every individual of Wandelbots had, and I can tell you, it didn't even take 3 months until everyone who was leaving Wandelbots had found new jobs, because they were great, right? So they were experts in what they were doing. Just we didn't need the expertise anymore.
So as you already mentioned the commercial side of it, are you expecting to move out of the runway burn rate situation and become cash flow positive, or have that operating margin that is giving you the space to breathe a little? Is that something that we could see in the near or midterm future?
It's a bit dependent on what you mean with near and midterm future.
Like end of next year?
End of next year? Very likely not. Because, of course, we don't know if we have hit product market fit yet, right? So let's face it, we are in the closed beta phase. We have been working with like 50 customers now. And the promise of them was to work very, very closely with us and to give us feedback. And I know that you are that you have deep expertise in product development. So the thing you are benefiting most from, especially at the early beginning of launch, before launching a product, or even after having launched the product, is feedback, right? So real customer feedback. We don't develop that in our basement and go out when we think it's 120% ready, but we gave it into the hands of real customers. And it was really important for us that they, have been using robots before, and B, and that was maybe the most important thing, is they had a pain that we were thinking Nova would be solving, right? So we were addressing a direct pain of those beta customers. And in the majority of the cases, it went pretty well, which is also why a bunch of those closed beta customers will be on stage for our launch event and tell the world about the experience they've had during using it very early stage. But then again, coming back to the operation margin next year, very likely we will have another financing round one day. It's not urgent. We do have a lot of runway still, enough runway, because we were lucky enough to close a financing round in 2020. So
we will not see Faktion asking for money on LinkedIn for you in the near future.
No, and once he's doing it, that does obviously mean no. Okay, let's not get into that detail.
Yeah, fair enough.
That we would have that we would have certainly covered in our former podcast. So no, but of course, I mean there are expectations both from our own perspective and also from the investor's perspective. So yes, one day we will be profitable with that. But let's see if the promising feedback that we gathered through the closed beta phase will also be true in the next phase.
Right. We're slowly but surely coming to the end of today's episode. So I'm wondering, let's say the 4th of November, that is the big day for you guys, is over. It's the week after, right? What is the best case scenario that could happen right after that announcement?
No one of us died, because I mean,
is there a serious risk for it if someone would die during that event?
I mean, you said it earlier. It's the 5th of October, and I can now unveil to your audience that it took us 3 approaches to have that podcast recording, because I am really head over heels currently, as you might imagine, having and organizing such an event all by ourselves, inviting people, getting the success stories, the testimonials, and all that stuff. Whenever somebody has ever organized an event, she or he will know what I'm talking about. No, but the good thing is there's only 1 week of a, let's call it, break, and right the week after, from the 12th of November until the 14th of November, there's maybe the fair trade that is the most important in our industry. That's the SPS.
It's in Nuremberg, right?
It's in Nuremberg, right? Not too far away from you.
So we might see each other.
I would be really happy to see you there. We will be there with a bunch of people. We will have our demonstrator there, and everything that we are showcasing on our launch event will also be showcased at the SPS. So let's get back to your question. When was it a success? The week after? The week after it was a success if we did have a lot of meeting requests for SPS. And the week after SPS, I would consider it a success if many, and I can even tell you, I can even not tell you any numbers now, many interested companies and users have registered for the open beta that we are going to start. That's the first thing. And of course, secondly, we've been a bit in stealth mode. And I know that you realized it, because you were even asking, is everything right with you? Because Wandelbots, back in the days, we were way louder, and a lot of people were writing articles about us and were requesting interviews, which we were always happy to give. But in May 2020, it's down. Focus on what's necessary to come up with a great robot operating system, and we won't do any marketing beforehand, so only really small approach. But of course, the launch event and the SPS, both of that should create a buzz, and that's the second part of a success. Within the industry, seem to be back with the great product, coming back from an expedition of like 18 months that we've developed on it, and people can see and understand why we did it, and that what we did will deliver great benefit to the industry. This would be a success.
So if people want to sign up for the beta program or get in touch with you or get in touch with Wandelbots to see a demo or even book a meeting spot at the SPS, where do people find you? What would be the best place to go to?
The easiest, and that's a good thing about stealth mode, so you don't have to care about too much, even on the website. So currently there are two major things, two major pages on our website, and one is register for beta, and the second thing is meet us at SPS. So if you go to wandelbots.com, you won't be able to miss it, I promise.
All right, we'll check it out. I will provide the links in the show notes. Martin, thank you so much for being on today's episode. Thank you so much for giving us the insights a couple of days early to the event. And good luck on the event, and hopefully see you on the SPS.
And I hope I won't sound that, I don't know, is it newsy? I don't know what's the English word for it.
You sound a bit French.
French? Oh, I hope this will get better. And yes, I did have COVID, and maybe that was the only week I could really live with that. Next week would be horrible. So that's not my usual sound. Cool.
He sounds way better. Trust me. Check out the other episodes. We do it. All right.
Thank you very much, Ben. It was a pleasure to be here.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in. I hope today's episode gave you a fresh insight into the world of robotics and transformation. If you're looking to stay up to date with the latest news from our podcast, don't miss out on our monthly Substack newsletter. Each edition is packed with episode highlights, in-depth articles, case studies, and announcements about upcoming events. And remember, if your organization is ready to take its next transformation, Stellar Work is here to support you in every step on the way. Until next time, bye-bye.
Nova's here changing the scene. Tune in, feel the tech machine. Stellar work where futures meet. Wandelbots brings that Nova beat. Nova, breaking through. Robots for me, robots for you. On the beat, automation's here. Tune in and feel it, the future's clear. Martin's fucking Ben's got the sound. Wandelbots making robots unbound. No need for code, it's plug and play. Nova's here to lead the way. In the lab where dreams take flight, AI minds working all night. From factory floors to tiny scales, Wandelbots brings wins and sales. Nova, breaking through. Robots for me, robots for you. On the beat, automation's here. Tune in and feel it, the future's clear. In the lab where dreams take flight, AI minds working all night. From factory floors to tiny scales, Wandelbots brings wins and sales. Step into the neon glow, where the LEDs never slow. In this dance of gears and wires, future fires where we aspire. Step into the neon glow, where the LEDs never slow. and waters, future flyers where we